into all the real people films. So I've been showing them stuff like Mighty Ducks and whatnot, and Heavyweights. We watched that. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids tonight. But we've been looking on Disney, and I saw The Luck of the Irish, and I remember that movie.
You can take him to Smart House after that, and then when he's older, you can show him the Final Destination, or whichever one he's in.
And I got Brink,
Yeah.
Brink, Johnny Tsunami.
That's right.
Those are all epic movies. Wow.
Oh, yeah, man. Disney back in the day.
Welcome to Good Lies Golf, another season. Look at us. What's going on, Brendan? And we got special guest, Ryan Merriman, down there.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. They were just talking about being fathers and movies and what you let your kids watch and what time, Hey.
Man, we're on to D2. We saw D1. We're on that train. D1, D2, D3. Mighty Ducks.
Those movies were legendary growing up.
From Bob Bay.
Emilio! And I was like...
Dude, I had no idea for the longest time that, he's Charlie Sheen's brother.
Honestly, I don't think anybody did. And I don't think anybody even really knew Martin Sheen was the dad. I don't think anybody really knew they were all family until kind of people said that. And they were like, oh.
I think once the Tiger Blood came out, that's when everybody started connecting dots.
At least our younger generation, because we're not fucking old as dirt. So we don't know these guys. We weren't born in 1955. So we don't know,
Exactly.
We don't know what we don't know.
We don't know who we don't know. We're
kind of like our golf game. We don't really know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly like our golf game. We don't know. Speaking of golf game, that's why we brought this gentleman on. Ryan is shoots 24 under par every time he goes out there. So we brought him on. He's a world record holder. And, we wanted to make sure we got what his juice was, like what he drinks every day to just go out and shoot crazy numbers like that. So
you're juicing.
That's
the secret, huh?
I was hanging out with what was it, Kim Jong-il or whatever. He shot 18, so I tried to do 18, but I ended up 24.
No, you just settled on 24. Nice. But it's awesome to have you on, and another season of Good Lies. We're basically taking it more casual this time around. We got the video component. Obviously, you see our faces, and basically just keeping it cash, more of a kickback, and we'll get into some Masters talk, but we're stoked to have you on. Ryan has a lot of experience in golf and was a superintendent of a very prestigious golf club, so has a lot of knowledge, fine knowledge of how to keep a course pretty clean.
Smidge knowledge.
Yeah. Maybe you'll share some of that knowledge, because you know what I really like? That stuff on Instagram, and you see like the slow-mo videos of them repairing holes and like Real Turf Crew and those guys. That's magic.
Yeah, if you don't do it in slow-mo, it didn't happen. That's what they say.
I've yet to activate that then. What's that button?
I don't, yeah. Unless you have a fancy iPhone, man, you don't have it. You don't have it, Brendan. Okay? Just stop.
Plus, you always got to have something cooler going on, like slit seating, aerifying, anything like that where you're busting up the surface. It's always good in the slow motion.
Yeah. Is that, did you did a lot of filming in your day? No. You're like, fuck that. I was busy working. I wasn't filming it.
I mean, when you could, like it's so convenient now that it's in the palm of your hand. So you could just cruise up in the golf cart behind these guys or whatever and then sling it onto Twitter. And then next thing you know, everyone's like, oh, what are you doing? And that's how the chatter begins, and that's how the brotherhood begins. And you start meeting other guys and learning their trade craft and try to bring it into yours. Yeah, exactly. For real. 1,000 ways to skin a cat.
Brendan spent some time on some golf course maintenance crews.
Yeah, back in the day. Not to the extent of you though, man. I mean, I kind of want to hear your story, but yeah, I used to work a little bit on the onset of high school and then a little bit in college, but at this course called Elks Run in Cincinnati, Ohio. Man, it's kind of a hidden gem. Back in the day, it was a top 10 public course in Ohio. It's not quite there anymore. Long story, really interesting story I could get into at some point here, but kind of curious to hear a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. So originally from Pennsylvania, started playing golf when I was 10. And then, you start get to be like 15, 16, parents are like, got to get a job. And I'm like, all right, well, I'd like to work on a golf course, but how do you do it?
Right.
So I had a 9-hole, actually it was 18 and a 9-hole. It was called Arrowhead Public Golf Course right down the street from my house. Walked in there, found the superintendent and the mechanic, and just asked him, hey, can I work here? And they were like, sure, So I show up after school. I had to get working papers too, because I was too young.
It's pretty easy.
Did all that. You start out weed whacking and push mowing and all that jazz. And then when you get like to start in the mornings, that's when you start cutting greens. And we were using old school Jacobson PGMs.
Man,
They don't make these things anymore.
Favorite things to do right there.
Yeah, cutting bananas. But yeah, so
drawing arrows.
Started there, and then spoke to a couple of people, and they were like, you can get an education in this as well. There's a bunch of top tier schools, Michigan State, Penn State. I went down south. You can go to NC State, anywhere. There's a bunch of schools that handle turf grass sciences, or turf grass management, whichever way you want to say it. That thing says turf grass sciences next to me.
Turf grass science sounds so fancy.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And everyone's like, "What is that?" You just cut grass, baby. That's all it is.
Different types of turf.
Mm-hmm. The turf gurus. So I grew up down the street from like Mike DeHusky, and he's a big dog in the industry. He runs Shelter Harbor in Rhode Island, #1 golf course in Rhode Island.
Wow,
he's been all over the place. He's at Merriman. Took me to Quaker Ridge. So when I was in high school, instead of going to what they called like senior week, right? Everybody goes to the beach and has fun and makes mistakes. I went down to Marion to be the youngest full-time volunteer for the 05 amateur. And then after that, he took me to do my first internship at Quaker Ridge in Scarsdale in the Merrimack.
Wow.
And it was a huge experience. Like it was a gauntlet almost, because Mike's a hard ass, and he wants everything done perfectly. And sometimes in the environments, you never know how the weather's going to be. And it was a sticky, sticky summer that year. And we were growing poa greens. And they weren't draining very well. And we ended up getting like Pythium at one point because it was a rainy season. So you couldn't vent them enough to get the oxygen back down into the root zone and dry them back out. So sometimes, he'd come to the monkey house, as they call it, where all the interns and everybody's living for the summer. And it was like 10 o'clock at night. And he's like, come with me. We're getting on the tractor blowers. We're going to start driving around these greens. And I'm serious. It's 10 o'clock at night. That's like, because that's what happens.
Not like Caddyshack.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
So Bill Murray.
Yeah, playing through, And so that's what it is when you're in this position. You take the job home with you, and you're always worried about the turf because everybody wants it perfect. They want you to walk on water. Nothing can ever be out of place or out of shape. And, sometimes a tree's going to fall on a green, and it's like, can't stop that. All you can do is clean it up and fix it.
Isn't that crazy, the expectation we have as like golfers, like leisurely? We're on all these courses, and we're just like a bunch of like fat potato chip eating, fucking beer drinking, like slobs, being like, yeah, this court, like Brendan knows me, I'll fucking shit on it.
Yeah.
I'm just like, who am I? Like, what a dickhead I am. Like, somebody probably woke up at 3 a.m., put his shoes on, fucking did some hard days work before I was even up with my fat ass, and I'm sitting here talking shit about the course conditions like I'm some kind of fucking good golfer.
Dude, that's why you gotta do your part, man. Fill in the divots. You know what I mean? You gotta.
Yeah, because if you don't,
you're out there.
You'll have someone like me being like, what's going on? Like, do your job. But we'll fast forward quick. So, like, what would happen when I would be doing course setup? Because I cut the cups almost every time it needed to be done. I was the guy doing it, even when I was a superintendent at East Hampton. And you would always have one guy. Like when I worked at Trump National Westchester, it was James Patterson was the first, the author, the first guy off the team.
Love his books.
Yeah, legend. And he's a quick player. He was good, but sometimes he wouldn't putt out. Like he would just hit the green and be like, good enough, send the caddy, go pick it up. And he'd start walking the next tee. And so you're sprinting, trying to like stay ahead of him and cut fresh positions and everything else. So when I got to East Hampton, I made friends with the caddies and stuff. The same thing would happen. You'd have there's actually a guy who would like speed walk through this because if you got a caddy, you got nothing on you, you can just do whatever you want. And so they would start to catch up to me. And so what I would do is I would cut extremely difficult hits. It's like that's the only way you can slow these people down. And it became like a little game of banter and whatnot. And eventually, when the round was finished, he's like, "Ryan, what's going on?" And I was like, "Dude, what do you want me to do? I have to set this thing up, and I'm trying to stay ahead of you, but you're coming up my ass like the entire time. So you're lucky I didn't put it in the bunker, okay, just to keep you at bay." So sling them in the back, tuck them up front, near the false fronts and everything else. And eventually they figured it out because I told them, I'm like, "Look, you're going to get blamed along with your member player here for the rest of everybody that has to come out and play today. It's going to be on you because you wouldn't give me 5 minutes to get out of the way." And like, we're there in the dark, usually out there about 90 minutes before any players.
Yeah.
So the fact that they can ever catch up to you, it happens sometimes. Because when you're doing when you're at the top, there's all different kinds of way to be a superintendent. Some guys like don't come out of their office, or they just drive around. I don't know. I'm very hands-on. I needed to be out there with my men to push them and to like lead by example, essentially. So it's like, don't slow down, let's go. And you can also correct situations on the fly when you see them. If you see this guy's cutting bananas or leaving skips, you go over him quickly. Like, "Look, you got to cut this again. This is not cutting it.
Well, I want to, before you get into that specific, I want to just like set a tone here. So we're not talking about like your Raggedy Ann golf club. Like the average membership price is what here?
$600,000.
$600,000.
Yeah.
So, if the course isn't absolutely mint condition, you're going to get a fucking earful or a boot in the ass. So
mint condition.
Yeah. Exactly. It's got to be pristine if you're paying that kind of top dollar to be at a golf club. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I was at Quaker Ridge, then I went to Liberty National. I was there in its like second year of existence before the shop was even built. We were just in tractor trailers and containers in the Dust Bowl. And then after that, Trump National Westchester, Hollywood Golf Club in Deal, New Jersey, and then out here on the east end of East Hampton. So I've seen all these different variations of high-end golf, different, it's mostly all been in the Met area because it's basically the mecca of golf, in my opinion.
Right.
But yeah, they're all the same. Everybody wants it perfect. And, you either have bent grass greens, or you got Poa greens, or you got the mix, depending on how old the golf course is. Like East Hampton's it's going into its 23rd year. So we kept it pretty pure. We had fine fescue fairways. The only other one on the island that has that is our cousin course, Friars Head. So both courses were built by Bill Core, Ben Crenshaw.
Yeah.
And they just chose to do like the links. They wanted it like that, use the fine fescue mix in the fairways, Providence bent grass on the greens. And East Hampton's like a small plot of land. And for what they had to work with, they really shined to make two different nines. The first 7 holes were links. There's no water, but still it's flat as a board. And then you get into the Parkland style, up and down undulations of the trees. I mean, to be honest, it was one of the most fun places to work, to play compared to all the other ones. Liberty was the biggest. I mean, that place had like 7 miles of cart paths. It was insane. And they were all
massive.
They were pavers. The whole
How big
thing
is the
was,
crew in an operation like that? And what does it take to run an operation like that? Like that kind of course when it's that big?
So he's probably got 30 guys. You know what I mean? It's standard for something like that, considering he has big time tournaments.
Right.
But most of the time,
do you guys ever bring like contract work in as well?
Depends on what you're doing, Like for us, we never had any big tournaments like that. The town would never allow that to happen. So, but if you're going to have a big tournament like at Liberty, you're contracting people in, you're setting things up. You need help
like 30. So let's take that example. I mean, how many guys you bringing in? What does the crew, get up to?
Like for us,
for Masters.
So when the volunteers come, do you have like 200?
Yeah, I was going to ask, transitioning to the Masters, like it's coming up this week. I mean, we're right there. The Masters week, it's crazy. I mean, what is that operation? Like Brennan said, like it's got to be what, 200 people? Like that's got to be a nut show.
200 or 300 for sure, and it's mostly superintendents. That's why they do so well. And I mean, there's a variety, a lot of salesmen and everything else. If you're lucky enough to get invited into it too, it's just like the lottery system as well. You don't always get accepted to come down and help, especially like if they fill up to like if they're a capacity for it, they're like, don't bother. We got enough bodies.
And
But
it's such a
yeah,
prestige that you don't even care. You just want to go down there. It doesn't even like matter. You're like, I'll work on
yeah,
that course if they don't fucking if I have to pay to work on that course, I'll go do it if I get the chance.
yeah, yeah. Like my buddy Mike, he was I think he was sitting on like the sixth green with a blower. That was his job to blow. Anytime there was a space or gap in between players, get the debris off, and people would like cheer him on.
So is that like just 24/7 around the clock, or like how does that work?
A little bit. Like the main guys of the crew, the head assistants and stuff, the assistants, yeah, they're gonna have the long and the superintendent, they're gonna have the longest days and the least amount of sleep. The volunteers, like when I did the '05 amateur, what it was is you woke up at 3, you were on the bus by 3:15, and you were at the shop by 3:30. And by 3:45, 4, you were being given your like directions, depending on what you were doing. Like at that age, I was rigging bunkers, which to me, that's the greatest job. If you get to go to a tournament, rig bunkers, money, because it's not, there's not a lot of stress. Maybe they want to tell you, oh, we're using leaf rakes, we're making lines. They'll tell you when you're in the fairway bunker, you're going with the fairway towards the green. And same thing, like if you're on a greenside bunker, you gotta, you're not gonna rake it off the side, you're gonna rake it up towards the flag and everything else. Stupid little things like that, the niche. But I think you would finish around 8 or 9. You were kind of out there. Like the players would be behind you, but you never really saw them. And then you'd have a break for a couple hours, watch play. Some guys went back to the hotel and slept. Like I slept on an air mattress in the maintenance tent, and then walked around, watched the players, went to the shops, bought things, ate food, and then you come back in
What an
basically.
experience, man.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
3, 4, and then they either do a whole nother mow of the entire property. You're not really messing around with bunkers. Like we were patching divots in the afternoon at that point, and there's plenty of them. You basically go out with guys like 25 shoulder to shoulder, and everybody's just got a bucket of seed and usually green tinted sand, so it doesn't show up on the cameras as easily. And there you go. Try to make everything smooth, find every
Green
imperfection.
tinted sand. Ah, that's how I've always wondered visually how they did that. Yeah, that seems easy enough, right? Green tinted sand.
Or you could be like at Augusta, they're nuts where on the par threes, they actually plug out the divots. So they'll go to their nursery, which is just like an offsite location somewhere on the property that has the same contiguous grasses being grown. And you'll have a hex plug, or, it's usually a hex plug. And they literally plug them out so the turf canopy looked perfect the next day on camera. Instead of, you'll see on certain events where they keep moving the guys back, and you can see how everything in front of it's blown to shit.
Right. Now, question on like knowledge base, like do some of these professionals, like especially like it's different when you're at different courses, but especially at a place like Augusta that's so prestigious and there's so many different people that have like, taken care of it and played with it. Do players have like that inside guy that they can talk to that works there that they know that's like, all right, man, what are you going to do this year? Like, what do you, like, do those guys exist? Like, does that
There's got to be
relationship?
insider trading.
There has to be insider trading with like Augusta secrets it's just existed for too long, right? Like,
yeah,
am I crazy?
definitely. No, not at all. Like Brad owns a super, so everybody
It's a
loves
small
Brad.
community too.
Yeah, and there's plenty of people like they get to go down there early too and do practice rounds. So that's when they get all their
now.
they get their books dialed in and all that jazz. And if they've done it year after year, like they made a few changes this year, like the course is like, I don't know, 45 yards farther. They adjusted a couple of holes.
Sure, yeah. Like
and they can figure this out. Like they go out 2-3 days in a row, they're like, I'm good. And when they're out there putting around, they already know where the locations are going to be. So you'll see guys like putting to a random spot on a green. You're like, what the fuck's he doing? You're like, oh, that's where the pin's going to be on Saturday. All right.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, everybody has an inside track to the information for the most part down there. They don't. There's no real way to keep it secret.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
And like so many of those hole placements have become like iconic too, right? So why mess with that? Sunday location on the par 3, is going to be kind of the back leftish or middle left.
Yeah.
on the under tier. So, I mean, you can't mess with that. You know that.
Yeah, and they can't. There's a whole committee of guys out there with stent meters, tape measures, and all this stuff, making sure that whatever locations they pick aren't going to cause like controversy during the thing when it's on TV. Like, remember at Shinnecock, what is it, the 7th or 8th green, that par 3 years ago, where they had it too dried out, and nobody could hold the green, and then they have the guys out there watering it, trying to keep trying to keep it slow it down. That's what they're trying to avoid. Yeah, that's what they're trying to avoid. So basically, once they find these locations, they're never going to change. They'll always be Sundays, always, like you said,
Tiger Reds.
Yeah.
Tiger Reds.
Speaking of the Masters, man, I mean, your knowledge of golf's pretty vast. You got some predictions, some hot picks, some insights.
God, I've never been good at that.
Never been good at picking.
I feel the same way, dude. I feel the same way. Like, you could feel so good about your picks, and then the complete opposite happens.
Yeah.
The amount of time we spent last year, Brendan. The amount of time that me, Zach, and Brendan spent last year just like carefully curating these picks and doing so much research and so much shit, and then our picks would just get slaughtered some weeks, and we'd be like, what are we do? Why are we even researching? Why don't we just pick out of a hat or go hokey pokey and pick a number? Like, what are we doing here?
There's just so many factors to it.
Yeah, I mean? It's impossible.
So many factors. You think you're covering them, but you're not.
I have a feeling it'll be good TV if the live guys are in contention with the guys like Speed and Thomas and McIlroy and all that stuff, because that'll create a stir, and everyone will be like, they betrayed us. They betrayed us.
Well, is it so?
There's already a stir.
Oh yeah. There's already been like shit kicked up. Obviously, the last 6 months has been such a riot. I mean, for most people that are tuned into golf, people are pretty familiar with the live situation, but it's only gotten more tense. And this is the first real tournament that wasn't like a DP World Tour event or something like that. This is like the first major, right? This is the first major since live.
Yeah.
Like since the real development of like all these players signing, right? This is like the first real major shot.
Yeah. But I mean, to your point though, like Cam Smith is coming, right? Kepka's won 2 tournaments out of the last 6 he's played in. He's playing pretty well, but who's he playing against, I guess? But I don't know. I think it's going to be really good for the sport. And Koepka also said a lot of the stir that's happening is media created, which makes sense. I mean, he said he's down in Jupiter playing with a lot of the other guys, JT, Spieth, whatnot, in Jupiter, Florida. But I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I mean, is it media driven like much of everything else?
I'm sure it's probably media driven, I would guess. Yeah. Why not? I mean, I'm sure there is like players that have like, clearly there's legacy players that are a little more roughed up about it. Like you could tell like Tiger's McIlroy has a little bit more tightening in his pants there. His tighty whities are a little more tight than the others. But there's a couple guys I think that are a little more like, about it. Billy Ho. There's a couple guys that are pretty vocal, but
Right. Yeah. No, I feel that.
But they're still friends, like you said. They're still chummy with all these guys, and they still hang out and play golf and do whatever. So a lot of
it's
it
hard
is
not to be. I mean, a lot of these guys have known each other for 10, 13 years, So
you can only hang out with Pat Perez so long before you got to start hanging out with your old buddies again,
Exactly. Yeah, like what I saw that what Bryson said that Tiger doesn't text him back anymore. It's like
yeah. But I mean, hey, Bryson's a nice guy, but I mean, I don't know. Would you?
It's the cleats.
Would you text him back?
Probably not.
The spikes.
Cleats.
They finally squashed the beef apparently. Since we've been back here with the Bryson Brooks Koepka beef is apparently squashed.
Yeah. Speaking of beef, I was thinking about this earlier. You guys have any like off the top of your head meals that you would prep if you were a Masters champion?
Elio's Pizza?
Whatever you want, man.
I would definitely have steak for sure. No doubt. It'd be filet mignon, easily. Lobster tail, mashed potatoes or something.
Keep that shit American. Keep it simple.
Send
good,
it.
Good flavor.
That sounds pretty dank. I'd probably go with the steak too, but I'd probably do like a T-bone or no, I'd go ribeye probably. Nice ribeye, mashed potatoes. To your point,
Have you ever
maybe
had coffee?
maybe a dank key lime pie, like flown in from the Keys
from key lime.
from key lime.
Wow.
Or maybe I'd have to go, since it's the Masters in Georgia, a little peach crumble, something like that.
Yeah, they ran out of the ice cream sandwiches last year. They almost caused a riot.
The sandwiches, yeah.
Best steak I've ever had was Kona crusted, like coffee crusted from the Capitol Grill. If you haven't had it, dabble, because it'll change your entire perspective on what's supposed to be seasoned on a steak.
Sounds dang. Gives you a little tickle too, huh?
Crusted. Love me some coffee. So that's a good tip. Wow. I would personally, if I was doing the Masters dinner, because they do it beforehand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would just do like the biggest, gnarliest, like heaviest Italian feast. And then I would just eat like a fucking salad. That way they're all feeling like dog shit the next day and they can't play good. And then I'm just breezing. Breezing right past, tiptoeing.
Those mind games. I wonder if they actually, like, if that is something that they think about. You know what I mean? If they're the guy who wins, he's like, okay, I was a previous champion. How do I get a one-up on it?
Matsuyama's like, watch how not fresh this seafood is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking that same thing.
Frozen fish sticks.
Everybody's having sushi.
Man, those things are dank in the air fryer. I love those.
Oh yeah, you're a dad, so you automatically own an air fryer. I forgot. That's like a combo pack. When you have kids, they get you with the air fryer next right away.
Dude, I love the air fryer. It's changed my life.
It's one of the best tools to have in the kitchen, to be honest, because you can do anything with this thing. You know, I do a lot of cooking, but if you're trying to get a bunch of things done and you're like, all right, I'm gonna chop the vegetables, hit them with a little olive oil, salt, and pepper, and throw them into the air fryer.
Some asparagus in there.
Bam, dude.
My dad's a big fan of the air fryer. I'm not so much a fan. I'm more of a oven or saute kind of gal.
You're gal, all right, yeah.
That's good too.
Yeah.
Look at that hair, dude.
Yeah, the hair got long over the last season there, guys.
Majestic.
Last season it was about here. Now we got about
like
here.
I should
Got
bring a
some
brush out.
Like Giants Bane. Giants Bane from Game of Thrones, baby.
Repping the Apple Valley Golf Club here, the famous Apple Valley, where I shot 17 under the course record, I think it was.
Famous.
Yeah, something like that. Brendan was there. It was great. That was a shit show. That was awesome.
Wish I hadn't been. Watch that game.
Yeah, that was ugly. We were all two of the kids that showed up actually took too many edibles and they wound. Brendan, I don't know if Brendan can tell this story a little better than I can, but
dude, that was the wildest round of golf I've ever had in my life. No, I would tell the story. Let me hold that story though. Let's get back to the Masters a little bit.
Yeah, back to the Masters.
The big event this week, right? Unless
I feel like if I could choose a golfer that I am the most confident with winning the Masters, and I said this a few months ago, I said that it was Rory. And I still think I'm going Rory because I think he's so fired up from this live shit and he's so fired up with all these like other golfers. I think he just wants to win so he can like have his ego put on a little shelf and you know, be done with it. I think because if he wins the Masters, that's like ultimate bragging rights. He can then close the book and be like, my fucking career's like, what's up? Like, who's going to say whatever after this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't.
Yeah, I mean, that's the missing link.
He's going to close the book and be like, okay, talk your shit, Liv, I'm out. Like, whatever. I'll see your green jacket, you know?
I can see him.
Had a hell of a round last year.
Yeah, him and Scotty Scheffler. Those two at the top.
Doesn't it
like those?
Doesn't it blow your fucking mind that Scotty Scheffler is 26 years old?
What blows my mind is that he's good. Just how incredible his swing is with
for
his
26.
Feet. It's just like he just strikes the shit out of the ball. I stand there, think I have like good technique. I can't hit the shit out of the ball at all.
That Benjamin Button disease. I thought he was 40.
That's what I'm saying. Like, first of all, he looks older and he's like 6'3", so he's a big dude, you know? So it's like, you don't think of Scotty as like this 26-year-old kid, but dude, when you find out he's 26, you're like, he's a child. Like, this kid was winning golf tournaments as a fetus, like straight up baby. Like, suckling teat, winning golf championships. Like it's crazy.
Dude, the guys there right now, man, around that age. I mean, we got a good pool.
Cam
of
Smith's
talent.
going to come in swinging.
You would think so.
Beautiful hair.
Yeah,
he does have some nice locks. We
Nice
are
American
big.
trailer.
We are big Cam Smith fans, though.
Yeah,
He's our boy.
that's our boy.
Love me a little Cam.
Yeah, he's the best. He just brings like the energy that's needed for the future of golf. Cam is that golfer. Like for them to excite the next generation of young golfers. Yes, Scotty is obviously an influence because look at him. He's like the perfect person, like just absolute America. He's like Captain America. You know what I mean? Like perfect example human being. But then there's Cam, who's like the fucking Aussie down under, rough and cut, doing all this like crazy shit and like acting all, like he doesn't give a shit about anybody. That was the worst Australian accent ever. I'm so sorry if we have Australian listeners. But yeah, that was just I just feel like that's his thing. He's like, that's the new attitude of golf, is like the way Cam Smith kind of comes off. I don't know.
Dude, to change gears a little bit, but still talk about Augusta. Do you realize that whole place, for the most part, besides the greens, is Bermuda, and they overseed the entire place with perennial ryegrass to make it, because otherwise, this time of the season down there, it wouldn't be woken up essentially. That's why
Right.
they have to do all that overseeding and make it slick willy looking, all vibrant and green. For a long time, I didn't know that until I got into the industry, and I was like, "What?"
It makes it heavier, right, for them to hit through slightly.
Yeah.
Is that how, when they had it in the off season a few years ago, is that how they had the change so quickly? Because there were pictures that were like, I guess leaked just a couple weeks before the tournament itself, and it was brown everywhere. And then all of a sudden, bam, it was Augusta green.
Yeah, like pea rye will grow on concrete, and it's one of the fastest germinating species of grass out there. That's like a lot of guys mix it in, on a bent grass tee. I would never do this because I don't, I didn't like how it looked when it would contaminate the tee. But if you want to have something fill in fast, you put perennial ryegrass in there. But the thing is like they have an unlimited budget. You know what I mean? It's basically a movie set down there for the PGA. Like that's their
That's their bread and butter. That's every year. That's their like best movie franchise. That's the biggest tent picture,
Well, and they own their own rights, right? Like they don't have to, they're not like all the other tournaments where they're giving their money away essentially. They get to keep everything. They're their own entity.
Yeah, and the place is like a science experiment. Like the greens have these sub airs and stuff which pull water. They can push air. They're also air cooled, so they control the temperature of the root zone down there. Like if it's too hot, that way they can keep everything dialed in for the week that it needs to be dialed in.
Wait, get out of here. There's temperature controls on the root systems?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so think of it like Lambeau Field, how they basically have like hot water tubes underneath the surface. And mostly that's to prevent injury for the players on the frozen
tundra. So it's not concrete.
Yeah, so it's the same type of, idea, but a little bit different down there. But yeah, they're shooting cold air through the root zone. So they get the best performance out of the green. They can keep it rock hard without it like burning up as quickly as, as they don't want that to happen. Like I remember a couple of years ago, Augusta didn't look too hot. It was all smoked out and burned up, and so they made a couple of changes. But like after the tournament's over, they pull the shade covers out, they cover up the greens, they baby the place. They kill all the pea rye you have to, because that's the only way to allow the Bermuda to come out of dormancy correctly. Right. It's a lot of money,
man.
It'll choke it out otherwise, and then you'll just be stuck with the other shit.
Dude.
Yeah, and like the pro at East Hampton, who's now the GM, was the head pro at Augusta. And like, he would tell us in owners' meetings, like, we brought in 47 tractor trailer loads of sod, and you're like, 47? Like, hey, there's like 12 pallets of sod per tractor trailer. You can do the math on that. It's like, what the hell are we all fixing?
Where's that go?
Insane.
But
that's
insane.
The thing. That's like you're talking about biggest lawns ever, and then fuck that even more.
I mean, I can see courses I play at come in with that hole after me, but damn, where do they put all that shit?
yeah, exactly. I can make some
I'm
divots.
just like
I can make enough divots.
beaver tails up.
Yeah. So it's an insane like operation from a cultural maintenance standpoint. A lot of things got to get down. They put bags of ice beneath the azaleas so they don't bloom. Like if it's too hot and they're going to bloom, they cool off the soil with bags of ice to prevent them from opening up too early, essentially.
But they changed the date though. They made it earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's all this weird tradecraft to the science in the soil.
It makes sense though, because that, like you said, this is like the Super Bowl of golf, so they need to make it visually perfect. It needs to be everything. Once the TV cameras are on, that place needs to look like Disneyland for golf, and that's it. It needs to look like Fantasy Island. And
yeah, and there's a filter on the
game.
camera. There's that green filter on the camera that always makes it look insane too.
You guys were kids. I mean, I don't know. Even I didn't play golf as a kid growing up. Like I went to the driving range with my dad every once in a while. He wasn't a golfer. He just did like driving range. We would go and whatever after like a dinner or something, we'd go hit swing. But it's crazy to me. I I never loved golf, but the Augusta music and just like the look and like everything of the Masters when I heard it on TV when my uncle or my dad would watch it during Easter or whatever it was, I was always so happy. I don't know. It was just like such a good memory. It was nostalgic and it made me like golf. Like that was, I distinctly remember that was the one time where I was like, wow, I really like golf. I like watching golf. And it was never any other time besides when it was the Masters. And that was like this perfect, like fairy tale almost when I was a kid. And I still didn't golf, you know?
Yeah, that's the illusion that I mean, not that it's truly an illusion because from what I've heard is it still feels that way when you're there in person, but that's like the picture that they create, the experience they create. It's such a big draw to your point. It is the Super Bowl. I mean, there's other majors. There's also the, quote unquote, the fifth major with the players.
Sure.
But I just feel like you get all walks of life get drawn to that tournament, to watch it that week. And I think it is just that picture of perfection that you get on the TV.
It really is. Yeah.
A lot of history.
So I said Rory. That was my pick. Who's Brendan's pick?
Man, I don't know if I have a pick per se, but I like a couple sleepers.
Ooh, I like sleepers. Tell us your sleepers, Brendan.
I don't know that this guy's going to win, but I just like him. I know he had a couple nice rounds last year too, and he had a close but not so close win earlier this year. But Minwoo Lee, I think he could be sneaky. Yep. And then Spieth, I don't know. His game seems to be turning around a little bit. His putting was not there at the WGC, but I feel like his iron play and his driver looked pretty good the last couple of tournaments he's been playing in, and we know his past at this course, right? So,
when Augusta makes it easier, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, you see that with some of the older guys. Like, I think Jason Day could be a bit of a sleeper too. He's been playing well this year. He's been saying he's healthy. His game seems to be coming back a little bit.
He started playing well at the end of last year. He had some magic. He was kind of
carryovers there.
Yeah, he was starting to fire it over, and if he can, and he's carrying over to this season, so that means positive stuff with Jason Day. That's something we haven't seen in a while. Consistency.
For sure. And then I don't know. Well, Zalatoris, 2 years in a row, he's been right there.
Can his putter though? Augusta and the greens. We all know the biggest thing about Augusta is around the green work, and that's why everybody's fading guys like Victor Hovland this week and stuff because he's not the best around the greens guy. It's like a lot of people are fading these around the green golfers, and I don't blame them because, like Ryan, these greenskeepers, man, these superintendents, they're out to get these guys. They want to make sure it's hard and it's the prestigious Masters and it's this and that too. They don't want to make themselves look like chumps. And can you speak on that? Like what the prestige is of that and like how they feel and how they take it? Like, is it such a level of that,
What's the mindset? Is it like, oh, I just want to do a really good job, make it look great? Or is it like, I want that, but I more so just want to fuck them up?
We want you to suffer. Like if you even just take it to the simple level, like that I had like club championship and all that stuff, fuck you guys. You're going down. Especially if they've been giving you shit all year. This guy, if you can put out a good product the entire time, but you still have people that are dicks. And you're like, okay, you're going to earn it today. And I'm going to make sure you put off the green. So
that's me. I don't appreciate any great, amazing. I just
I take Sherman
if my
to
game sucks that day, I'm just
one of the
pissed.
better public courses, like in the Cincinnati area, if not the best. And yes, it was the off season. It's like January in Cincinnati. We just so happen to get a 40, 50 day, degree day. And he's just complaining the whole time.
The course was like honestly fine. Like, yeah, it was kind of janky in some areas, but like it was totally fine. I was just like miserable having the worst day of golf, and I was just blaming every possible leaf.
Dude showed up without any golf equipment, not even shoes. So he's just wearing regular shoes. They're getting wet because it rained the days before.
Course was soaked. It was just like
he's like pissed off that it's cart path only. He's like, when it's soggy out, that's when you should be able to use carts. And I'm like, dude, you're a fucking idiot, man. That's how you mess up the
power
course.
sliding everywhere.
Yeah. No, I was just so angry. I was just so frustrated on the day. I felt like, John Daly not having a cigarette for 12 hours. I felt very frustrated.
Or Diet Coke, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Like, we'll double cut, double roll, shut the water off. You put a couple of growth regulator, micronutrient packages out. Micronutrients mostly just supply a good color shot if you want to get away from like plant physiology and everything else, what they actually do, with photosynthesis and all that jazz. But yeah, you try to make it brick city, because half these guys are liars anyway. They're like, yeah, I shoot 75 every time I'm out there. And then when they go do this, they're 105. And you're like, what happened, bro? I thought you were going to have it.
There's so much BS in the
I
world of
never
golf.
shake.
I'm learning all these guys that like always say, "Oh, what's your handicap?" They're like, "Oh, I'm a 8." You're like,
No,
"You're not." Like,
No.
you're not. Like, I suck, but I admit I suck, and I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm probably like a 20 something, maybe more." Like, I'm a good decent handicap. I'm pretty shitty, but like, don't be the guy that says you're an 8 and then shoot fucking 40 over par like me. Then you just look like a dipshit.
Yeah.
Own it.
The guy, probably, Brad Owens, he's trying to put on the best show that he can. But yeah, he wants it to be like, not everyone's suffering, but he wants to pay like people to be switching positions. Like, no one should just be going in there and blowing it out of the water like Tiger did for all those years because he was just so freaking good.
Yeah.
It should be like somebody should be on a roll and then the nerves maybe set in and they falter and then the next guy moves up. It's almost like a Formula One race where they're jostling for positions. Like, that's how the superintendent wants it to be. He wants it to be where you're almost shooting even. Best case scenario, over par. Like Steve Rabideau at Wingfoot kicked ass the last time. It's like he's got like, well, I don't know what the winning score was even. Plus one, minus one. Yeah, it's like that's what you want. It's so fucking hard that even the greatest golfers in the world are struggling to complete the course, And at the end of the day, you want them fucking exhausted, not only physically but mentally. So when they got to come back the next day, they're like, "Fuck,"
Right.
So you guys pick a number that you're like kind of aiming for,
not really.
Or it's more so just like you just want to make it as hard as possible. Chips fall where they may.
Mm-hmm.
But if we could pick a number, it would be even or worse.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Damn.
You don't want anybody shooting the lights out because then you're like, it's too easy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now, what is that switch like if it is kind of easy? Like if it is like if you do get that easy day where some guy just kind of lights it up, like is it all of a sudden all hands on deck, everybody, change course and everybody's switching directions and going crazy, switching things for the next day?
No, not really. You just be like, that guy's a freak of nature. No, that's about it.
What about some of those other like resort style course, tournaments like Punta Cana or, something where you see the score is pretty low? Is that how they make it? Or is it just, it's an easy course? Sometimes.
It also could depend on weather, like say they had the whole place bricked out and it was going to be like a gauntlet and then it fucking poured. So now the whole place is soft and everybody can go pin seeking and there's nothing you can do because it takes days for the place to, dry back out. You're strapped in. That's all you can do. And so from that's when they're just double cutting, double rolling as much as they can to make it as hard as they can, but those guys are so fucking good,
I think tournaments like that too, especially like Punta Cana, I think some of those like they are making them a little easier to bring the field in a little more. And now I think, you know, I mean, and especially tournaments like that, like the more B level or the more kind of not the A level tournaments or like the B roll kind of stuff, they're kind of making these easier so these younger guys, these Corn Ferry guys can have a better shot too. You know, that's why you never see all these Corn Ferry guys do any good in the real bigger, sicker courses, because I feel like the ones they kind of work them into slowly aren't as intense as, you know, some of the ones they're getting hit with when it's like A level, you know?
Yeah, like what was it, the President's Cup or whatever? Whenever they played in France, right? Europe's a lot different compared to us. You know, you could get to like St. Andrews, browned out, baby, old school, minimal furt, like just let the topography and the land, whatever happens, happens. Because the weather over
I'm
there is
headed out there in September.
nice.
Stoked.
Yeah,
But it's
he's
like
going.
the sun never comes out, right? It's always overcast and cold, so everything's fescue and everything's different. And then over here, depending on the locations, it's like we try to make it as hard and as fast as we can. But like when they were at that like I think it was like French National, whatever it was called, they had the greens rolling at like 10 and a half feet, and they were cool with it. And the place was beautiful. It was vibrant green and everything else. And if you watched videos above before it, they were doing all kinds of tactics to make sure that if they did have a rainy season or a shot during the tournament, that the place would drain. So they were deep tining and backfilling these channels with sand and everything else to make the property function correctly. But at the same time, they were like, we don't really care about them rolling 12. You know, like if you guys are that good, you can figure out how to make the putts if the greens are a little bit slower. And that's what's kind of cool when they like depending on where you are or who the superintendent is or who's running the show, where it's like, no, we don't really give a shit about the stimp meter. You know, no one cares. Like my stimp meter sat in my office. I never pulled that shit out. It was the most annoying thing ever. Well, what are they rolling? I don't fucking know. They're quick. How's that?
Yeah.
You know, what do you
Yeah,
care? You're not going to make your putts anyway because that's how. Oh,
Well, it's
right.
comforting to
They're
know that that's a
they're
general
slow.
thought amongst.
They'd be like, they're slow, and I'd go out there and I'd drop the ball next to them with my janky putter out of my cart and drain it, and be like, "What's the deal?"
That
Be
is
like,
awesome.
be like, "I've been watering greens. I'm not even warmed up, not playing. I'm not in the zone at all. And you've been playing this golf course every day all summer. How can you not figure this out?"
So Augusta, they do take some heat. So that's so the golfers are actually they're trying to mess their day up. That's good to know because I always thought they would be, and it's good to know that they're actually kind of doing that.
Mhm.
That's awesome. But
Pressure
that's,
Hey,
on,
you
man,
didn't
that's
tell us
the
who your
dream.
prediction was, though. You didn't say who you got.
I'll go with Scheffler. Why not?
You're gonna go Scotty Scheffler. All right, somebody
Dude.
pick Scotty.
I mean, he's playing really, really well.
He's just
Scotty
I
for
like
Ryan.
smooth and steady.
Yeah,
I like him too, man. Honestly, I mean, he played well
so
here
well.
last year, obviously, but he's been on another run this season. He's
He doesn't look like he's
racking
slowing
up
down.
top fives.
But isn't it crazy to see like the difference like with Tiger? It's like Tiger did this shit day in, day out for like
And he's back.
over a decade. You know what I mean? Like crazy. Yeah, so is he good
Dude,
to
he
go?
had a
Is he like ready?
22% win rate. Like Rom and them only have an 11, 10, 11. And he did it over a much longer period of time. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. Unreal.
He
He's
basically
good to
had
go.
3 of the best careers. If you chopped up his entire career, he's got 3 of the best that's ever lived or played the game.
Right. Now he's good to go for the Masters?
Yeah.
Locked and loaded.
Yeah.
Like
He's already
like
there,
injury
man.
meaning like I know he's playing, but like is he designated, like has he been saying things about his injury status? Has he commented on the condition yet?
I think it's a
Cyborg
lot of the
legs?
same, a lot of the same. He's just his people got to get him ready after every round. Ice bath, warm, eat, sleep, workout, keep it warm.
Does he still get to ride in a cart?
No, I don't think so.
He gets to get hit and ran
No.
over by a cart.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was sorry. Flashbacks. That was
See, that'll play into it, because he's all jacked up from his injuries. You can see how like exhausting it is for him to just.
That's the thing that sucks, though.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you can see that, like there's still glimpses there. If he had time, if he wasn't at the elder stage of his career, you would think he could potentially work his way back. But what he needs is time, and that's also what he's running out of.
Yeah.
Right.
He
Well,
just needs to be there though, because that's the best thing. Like he was always the best
Yep.
thing that ever happened to golf. So wherever
For
he's
sure.
just present, it's always a win for them. So as long as he's there, it's good enough.
agreed.
I will say, dude, at the Genesis, he hit the ball really well.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man.
So the
If he
final
can make
thought-
it through 4 rounds and be all right energy wise, you never know with him, man.
So the final thought of the podcast is all three of us think Tiger is winning the Masters.
He's gonna
Wow.
take it home.
Wow. That's our combined thought here on Good Lies Golf to close it out.
Coin flip. Could be.
All right, we all signed off on it. Yeah, Tiger Woods wins the Masters.
Can't rule him out, that's for sure.
Yeah, can't rule
Never.
him out. You
He
can
could
wheel
be
him
in a
in,
wheelchair.
but you
I feel
can't
like
rule him
he'll still
out.
win.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on, man. Brendan, as always, and we're gonna hit you with another episode of Good Lies Golf next week. Thanks for listening in, and cheers. Thanks, boys.
Good boys.
Yeah, dude. I appreciate you coming on, man. It was great meeting you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. This has been a pleasure. You know, we gotta do
Absolutely.
this more often.
Hell yeah.
Always down. That's for sure.